back to the channel. This is going to be a quick video. I'm shooting this on iPhone 13 Pro, and I'm going to be talking about the Canon R6 and the RF lens mount and kind of what I think of it after about 6 months with this system. I have previous experiences. I own both the Nikon and the Sony mirrorless cameras. I own a Nikon Z6 II, multiple lenses with that, and then the Sony A7 III and the A7 R4. And I ended up settling on this for a few reasons, but I've had it for a decent amount of time. I'll kind of go over the camera, the RF lens, mount, and kind of the lenses available there and kind of my thoughts on it. I'm not a professional photographer or videographer. I really love doing both. So I've made an investment because I love doing video, I love doing photo. We have an 18-month-old, so I just love doing that type of stuff. So let's jump in. First, we're gonna talk about the ergonomics of the camera. So the Canon R6 is a little bit, first, I think it's around $2,500, $2,499, I believe. It's more on the lines of a DSLR body. It's not quite as heavy, but it kind of has that nice big grip to it. The body's a little bigger compared to especially the Sony, like the A7 III, which was a much smaller camera, but it also wasn't as easy to hold. The Nikon Z6 II was probably my favorite ergonomic camera, but the Canon's pretty close. It's just a very smart layout for photo and video. Everything's in the right spot. You got your plenty of controls here on the back. You got plenty to customize. You don't have the quite customization as you do in the Sony system, but the Sony systems can be a little overwhelming in how much you can customize them. So I really love the whole body feel. I like that it has the sensor here or the shield here to cover the sensor, which is a good feature. Most of the new Nikon mirrorless camera coming out and the Sony A7 IV has the same type of setup. So I do really like that, just because it covers the sensor when the camera is off. But ergonomics wise, I would say this and Nikon are tied, and Sony falls in last just because it's a little too small for my hands. I have medium-sized hands, I would guess, but it feels really, really good in the hand. A little larger than maybe some people may expect, but it's not as large as, say, like a Nikon D800 or a Canon R4. Those are not R4, 5D Mark IV. Just had a little bit larger design to it. So I really like the ergonomics of it. It's a mainly plastic body. It probably does have some aluminum framing to it, but it's really nice to hold in the hand. So if you're coming from any type of DSLR, it will feel great. Just make sure you're okay with the size. Try to find a Best Buy or a local camera store and play around with that. You get 2 SD cards, which I'm okay with. I know CF Express is supposed to be a little bit more secure. It's definitely way faster, CF Express is, but it's also more expensive. So you got the 2 SD cards. I think only the first slot is the USM 2. I don't think I even have a USM 2 card. Oh no, looks like I do. So my Lexar one's USM 2. It's not a very fast card though, so you're still gonna spend a decent amount if you want some pretty fast cards. That's it for the ergonomics. It's great. Canon support is top notch. It's way better than the Nikon and Sony equivalent, I would say. Sony outsources most of their warranty stuff. Nikon keeps theirs in-house, but supposedly it's not the greatest. I've never dealt with it, but I have dealt with Canons, and Canon has really good customer support. So body-wise, it's an excellent overall system design. The EVF is a really good EVF. I don't use it that much. I usually use the back display, which I do wish was a little bit larger. That's the only negative I have with this back display, is that I think it's 3 inches, and the Nikon I think was 3.1 or 3.2. You wouldn't think that 0.1, 0.2 would make a difference, but it really does. I wish it was a little bit larger of a screen because I mainly use it for my photos, because honestly it's just easier for me. And then it does rotate out like this, so if you're doing any type of video work, it's really nice because then you can kind of see yourself. See, you can kind of see what we're shooting there. I'm not really sure how the video audio is going to be on this. I've never shot a video on my iPhone 13 Pro. So that's a good feature. Not really anything else. It's very easy to customize the menu, and once you get everything set between your photo and video, Once you turn it to video, it saves your settings. Once you turn it to photo, it has the same photo settings. The only thing I find that I change from time to time is C-Log. So if I don't want to shoot in C-Log, I have to turn that off. But besides that, everything can mainly be done in this quick menu. I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but you basically have this quick menu, which you can customize, and you just have all your features there. I almost never go into the menu setting once I have it set up. I haven't had any real reason to go into it. So that's good. I don't mess around with all the settings too much besides the C-Log. I change between non-C-Log and C-Log 3 depending on what kind of mood I am when I'm shooting. So menu system's easy. I think all three were pretty easy. Even the Sony system, people say, is a little bit cumbersome, but once you get things set up, you're not in there all that often. You really aren't. You're mainly dealing with that quick menu here. At least I found on all three systems. That's what I played with the most once I got it all kind of squared away. Battery life's really good. It's not as good as a DSLR, probably because it's more electronics. So you have electronic viewfinder. I don't have any nails, so it's hard for me to get this open, but it has a good sized battery. I actually have a spare battery. I won't get it out, but it's has really good battery life. Anything else? That's it. Really happy with that. So let's get into the RF lens mount, or let's first talk about the video and photo quality. It's excellent. All three systems between Nikon, Sony, and Canon do great photo and video. Honestly, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a difference between a lot of them. There's a few little different, just how the cinema files are done, especially on the video side of things. Well, on the photo, I think Nikons are a little bit warmer, while Canon's a little bit cooler. But all three will take absolutely amazing photo and video. So there's nothing to even talk about there. They all do very, very good jobs. Autofocus, I think the Canon has a better autofocus system than any mirrorless camera or any camera I've ever used. The Sony A7R4 was a close second, but the files were so large that it really got bogged down just because of how large the sensor was. 60 megapixel sensor, I believe, around there. I think the A7 IV will be very similar to this, but this is the fastest autofocus I've ever used. It has no problem tracking our 18-month-old, and he is all over the place right now. So it's well above what the Nikon system's doing. I mean, it's night and day compared to those two. I missed tons of shots on the Nikon, or they were blurry just because of how slow the autofocus was compared to the R6, R7, or R6, R5, and even the Sony systems were really good at autofocus. So eye tracking, face tracking, you set it to auto and it does it all for you, and it's really, really good at knowing what it should be shooting at. So I haven't had any issue. You set the tracking to auto, it does its work. I haven't done any birds or anything, but our 18-month-old is pretty active and it does a really good job there. So that's it for the system. I think this is a 30 megapixel sensor, which is perfectly fine for me. That's the one thing I didn't like about the Sony A7R4 is the files were so large, and the buffer was just full all the time, just because of, it's not the camera's fault, it's 60 megapixels. I mean, these are massive files, so it takes a little while to get those down. So that's really it about the whole system. Now I want to talk about the lens mount and the lenses. So the lens mount is an RF instead of the EF. I know you can adapt the EF lenses, but I'm not going to talk about that too much because I don't think if you're buying the RF mount, you should be adapting too many lenses, because that's not what it's made for. So you really have two different kinds of lenses here. So you're going to have your L series lenses, which cost a fortune and are heavy. So this is the heaviest lens I've ever used. The second one would be probably the 35 millimeter 1.4 or the 135 millimeter f2 for the Canon route, and those were not heavy lenses by any means. This is a heavy, massive lens. There's a lot of glass in here. It's f1.2. Has two USM motors, so there's a ton packed into here, and it has got some heft on it. So this is probably heavier than what my DSLR setup was, just because of the lens. And then you have the 1.8, the STM lenses, which are compact, cheap. So this is the 35 1.8, which is $400 on sale right now. You have the 50 1.8, which is $200. You have the 16, which is I think 300. So you have some decent budget-oriented lenses, but they're STM motors. I don't believe there's any weather sealing on these. There's no rubber gasket or anything, so build quality seems good, but they're not. Sony has a lot of good 1.4 lenses that are kind of mid-road, like the 35mm 1.4. I think is probably my favorite lens that I would ever use, but Canon likely is not going to make one for a while. They've been rumored to make 35 1.2, which will probably cost $2,500 and be just as big, or if not bigger than this. So you either have really expensive, really heavy pro-grade lenses, a lot of heavy pro-grade zooms. Also, I do not use zooms, mainly because they confuse me. I know it seems weird, but the zooms really confuse me, so I don't ever use them. So that's a big kind of negative there, is that I just don't think that you have a lot of options with lenses yet. I have looked at adapting a few RF lenses or EF lenses, mainly the 135. I like a little bit longer focal length, but the 7200 f2.8 is a zoom. It seems confusing to me, and it's like $2,600, $2,500. The 100mm macro, it's a macro lens. I don't really want a macro lens. Screen turned off. So really, that's the only negative there. The STM motor lenses are a little slower to focus, at least this 35 does miss a few more shots than the 50 does, but the images you get off both of these are excellent. The 1.2 has a lot more character, so it is a unique lens compared to any other lens I've used. It's always sharp, it's always fast to focus, and it's always consistent with the images you get out of it. The 1.8 is very technically good, but it's no different than any of the Sony, Nikon 1.8 mirrorless lenses out there. They're all similar, sharp, quick focus, some character, but not anything that's gonna set apart from like the 1.2 lens. So that's the only negative I found, is that the lenses are super heavy, which I personally hate. If I liked the Sony bodies, I would go back to one of the Sony systems and get the 35 1.4, and I would be done, just because of how light and compact it is. And that lens has a ton of character. It's a really good lens, and it's only $1,400, so it's a much cheaper lens. But they don't make good they make good bodies. They don't make bodies that I think are fun to use or that I want to use. This body I like using. I really love it. It's a good overall system. Just be aware of a few of its flaws. So it is expensive to get into the pro grade lenses. I hate the 50mm focal length. I still love this lens. I hate the cost. I hate how big it is, but the images I get off of it are absolutely amazing, which I love. And with our 18-month-old, it's something that I'm never going to get back, is those pictures. So I really do cherish that with this. And I really like the STM because they're really good for video. So the STM are advertised as being video center focused because it has a stepping motor, so it does really good changing focus with the pulling. So I'm looking forward to maybe a 24 1.8. I would really love that, or a 21.8. 16 is a little too wide, but I'd really love a 24, which they're rumored to release at some point. But overall, really happy with it. You could get by with just doing the 1.8 lenses if you were on a budget, but I don't think you're going to get anything different than you would if you got a Sony or Nikon system, especially if you're not doing any fast-moving subjects. I don't think I would probably get, if I was just doing standstill stuff, I'd probably get the Nikon system, just because they have a ton of really good 1.8 lenses. They're all weather sealed. They're cheaper than some of the Canon pro grade lenses, and they're starting to come out with some pro grade lenses. But if you need to track anything, that system's out. I would look into the Sony or Canon line. If you're okay with the Sony bodies and you like they're just too small for me, so my hand was always falling off, or they just felt too, even the Sony A7R4, which I think is one of the more better built Sony cameras out there, it felt like a toy. It was, even though it was all metal, it just felt like it was going to break all the time. This, I've dropped, my 18-month-old's pushed it off ledges. It's a robust, well-built camera. And the Sony ones are too. There's no knock there. It just didn't feel like a right fit for me. So that's it. I think it's great to just make sure that it's something that you want. Try to check them out in the store. So if you have like a Dodge camera, or a lot of bigger Best Buys will have all these cameras on display, go check them out, play with them. If you're okay with the body, I would stick with the Sony route just because of the lens selection. So you have a ton of budget, mid-grade, and high-end lenses, not high-end lenses and low-end lenses. So you have a good variety there. So that's it. Comments, questions, leave them below. Sorry for the audio and video. This is shot on an iPhone. So it'll give an idea of what video will be like on an iPhone with decent lighting and in a studio. Well, I don't know if I'd call this a studio. This is a home studio setup, but it's a pretty decent light. So we'll see what kind of video we get from that. Comments, questions, leave them below. If you like this video, let me know, and I'll do more random stuff like this. I just threw this up after work, so I thought I'd see what we got. I hope you have a good rest of the day, weekend, holiday, Thanksgiving tomorrow. So have a good holiday, and I'll see you guys next time. See if I can hit the off button.